Warm welcome to this lecture series on organizational behavior. We are in the chapter on group dynamics. I'll quickly summarize what happened in the previous lecture. We defined what is meant by a group. We also looked at the definition of a team. We also looked at the differences between team and a group. So the major difference being teams are more structured and formal than groups, and teams are also in the context of work or organizations. Groups can be in other contexts as well, and usually teams are seen as subset of groups. We also looked at different types of teams and their characteristics. We also looked at a very important perspective on group development, which talks about how team dynamics evolve over a period of time in teams. So this is kind of a life cycle model where we look at performance and cohesiveness in teams over a period of time across various stages. We also looked at some of the problems which may happen in teamwork. So two major problems we looked at, or we wanted to look at, is free riding and social loafing and groupthink. So there's a very minor difference between social loafing and free riding. Social loafing is being in a group, people tend to not work or not exert that much of an effort because they feel there are very less chances that they'll be identified. Free riding is taking advantage of others' effort in the group. So somebody doesn't work in the group because he or she knows others will work. So that is free riding. So we looked at some of the reasons for free riding. It can be both. One reason is people think they cannot be identified, so they may not work. The second reason is people may think if they work too much, others will take advantage of them. Others in the group will take advantage of them and give them more work. So that can also be a possible reason. Okay. Some of the conditions for social loafing. In what conditions social loafing can happen? One, when the team size is very large. So when team sizes are large, the identity of the person is lost in the group. The individual identity or the individual ownership of a person to fulfill the task is reduced. Also, when the teams are large, it can also lead to less work for individuals. So individuals in the team might think, I don't have to contribute to the group because anyway there are many people in the group to contribute. So that can reduce the ownership of individuals in the group. And also people may perceive low instrumentality, that can lead to social loafing. When I say instrumentality, you remember the motivation chapter. So when people feel even if they contribute, they will not be able to achieve the results. So they feel their presence is not important, or they feel my effort will not lead to increase in performance in the group. So if people perceive that way, it can increase social loafing, especially when there are lack of resources available for the team, or there is no enough support for the team from others in the organization. Members may feel they have low instrumentality. Low trust between team members can also be a reason for social loafing, because when people feel others in the group will take advantage of them, or their efforts will not be recognized sufficiently, or people may not acknowledge their contributions in the group. So if those things can lead to low trust, and that can lead to reduced effort of individual team members in the group. So the role of the leader is very important here. The leader should ensure that the members who perform are acknowledged and recognized in the team. And also if there are clear-cut prescriptions in terms of who has to do what, and accountability in terms of how to evaluate individual and group performance, it can increase, it can reduce social loafing. Perceived low or negative valence. When the group members feel the goal which they are going to achieve and the rewards which they are going to get for achieving those goals are not very important, then they may not perform well in the group. And also when the group has a eager beaver in the sense somebody who's very enthusiastic and somebody who's like willing to take all the responsibilities and perform. Others will think anyway there is one person who's doing everything, so why do we need to contribute? Because they feel their contribution is not required because there is someone who's willing to take all the responsibilities and do all the tasks. And also if the tasks are very mundane, very boring kind of, very routine task, people may not have motivation to perform those tasks. They may feel the tasks are not very interesting, so why should I do this? Somebody else will do this. Sometimes cultural and individual factors may also play a role. For example, in certain cultures, unless and until others ask them to contribute, people may not contribute because they feel, why should I unnecessarily intervene in the group function or in others' work. But in some cultures, you are expected to contribute even if others don't ask you to do so. Okay. Similarly, in some cultures, people may feel, it's not their responsibility to help others because there are structures in place. People will be able to take care of themselves. But in some cultures, even if it is not asked from you, individuals may feel I have to intervene and help. So these kind of cultural factors can also play a role in social loafing. Or depending on the culture, you might be perceived as someone who's involved in social loafing, but you are doing it because it's not part of your cultural value system. Okay. So how to tackle social loafing? A very important way in which social loafing can be reduced is increase identifiability, which means increase accountability of individuals and also have mechanisms where individual effort is identified and may be rewarded. We'll talk about problems in rewarding individual performance in groups later, but at least some form of accountability and reward mechanisms for individuals should be there in the team, should exist. So like things like weekly reporting, instead of like waiting for members to be evaluated at the end of the project, it's important to evaluate at shorter durations or continuous evaluations will help. So weekly, the team manager or the project leader should meet team members and ensure how much they contributed, what are the problems they are encountering and things like that. And also promoting involvement through having tasks which are interesting and challenging. And also if members feel that they're part of the team and they feel proud about the membership in the team, they tend to contribute more to the group, which reduces social loafing. Like I said, rewarding individuals will help, but if you reward with monetary rewards or material rewards, it may lead to competition within the team members. Within the team members will compete. It will lead to decreased performance of the group. So instead of rewarding material rewards or monetary rewards, we can use symbolic rewards. Symbolic rewards can be appreciation, a certification, or a group meeting where people verbally congratulate or thank the good performer and things like that. So symbolic rewards are more effective than materialistic rewards in the group context. If you are going to reward individuals in a group, it's better to use symbolic rewards. And also strengthen the group cohesion. So strengthening the group cohesion will improve trust in the team. So when people feel trusted and also people feel others are trustworthy, they tend to work better and contribute more to the group. Okay. And also increase personal responsibility. Instead of having group goals obviously it will exist in the group. We should also have individual goals which will align with the group goals. So having individual goals will also help the manager evaluate individuals in terms of how much they contributed. So when setting individual goals, it's always better to ask the individual how much are you going to contribute. Okay. So the individuals in the team can be asked to set their own goals. One important reason is it will bring in a sense of ownership to what they are committing to. Instead of the manager saying you do this is a larger organization or team goal, part of it you should do it. Instead of manager saying that, when members set their own performance goal in consultation with the team manager, they'll feel more sense of ownership and responsibility. And also have team contracts. Team contracts means unwritten rules where members meet in regular intervals and say, okay, this is what I'm committing to the group, this is what I can do to the group, I will do it in this duration, and this is how you can judge whether I have done it correctly or not. So this is like setting own performance goals, but here they do it to the group. They are setting targets, or they are committing themselves to all the team members instead of just to the manager. And also having internal feedback reviews. So once continuous evaluation in terms of all the team members meeting and trying to understand how each other's performance influence the other person in the group, and also how they feel their needs and their expectation from the other team members are fulfilled. So having an open meeting within the team for internal feedback reviews will also help. And also, like I said earlier, large team sizes, it can increase social loafing. So teams with right size are very effective in reducing social loafing. So when you say right size, usually, like I said earlier, 8 to 15 members maximum. Okay. So we are going to look at the next next problem which teams might encounter more frequently in organizations is groupthink. We have spoken about groupthink in one of those earlier chapters on decision making. So groupthink is a type of thought exhibited by group members, which the purpose of this is to reduce group conflict. And instead of arriving at the right decision using rational methods, people tend to make decisions in order to satisfy others in the group. In simple words, instead of taking the right decision, you are taking a decision so that others in the group will not get dissatisfied. So you are trying to bring in consensus in order to reduce conflict in the group. By doing this, you might be taking, or the group might be taking, a wrong decision. Okay. So this is like placing more importance on group cohesion or relationship in the group than the right decision. Okay. If you remember, we spoke about it in our decision making chapter. Okay. There are some symptoms which will show that there is a potential for group thinking, or there is a group think might happen in the group. There are chances that group think might happen in the group. So what are the symptoms? The first symptom is the group might feel they are invulnerable, which means they are the best. When groups feel they are there for many years, they are experts, and this group is unbeatable. So if they have such a kind of feeling, there are more chances they will have groupthink. So even sports teams which are very good, very successful over a period of time, they may lose to small or newer teams, sports teams. So for example, in cricket, there are these super capable teams like Australia or maybe India at some point. They have lost to smaller teams, or they have lost to very young teams like Afghanistan, or even to Zimbabwean teams like that. Why? Because when these teams feel they are invulnerable, they are nobody can defeat them, there are more chances they will get defeated. Okay. Similarly, groupthink also, when groups feel they are the best, they may take wrong decisions because there will be overconfidence in decision making. And also collective rationalization, which means when teams fail at smaller levels, they tend to justify it. They tend to say, no, it's not a big failure. This is like a small failure, or this failure is not because of us. This is because of some other reason, external reason. Okay. And also unquestioned belief. These teams which are highly cohesive, they tend to feel that nobody can question their belief. If there is a critical voice within the team or from outside the team, they tend to crush that voice. So what happens because of that? When some team members feel this decision we are going to take is not correct, they may not open their mouth. So all these critical voices are silenced in these kind of teams. And also these teams have stereotypical viewpoints, which means members are very biased in their opinion. They tend to look at things in a very haphazard manner. They don't actually use rational methods for decision making. Why? Because many times these teams are very successful over a period of time, so they feel we know better and this is how things happen here, which may not be true. Sometimes direct pressure in terms of making quick decisions. When there's a lot of pressure on the team to make immediate decisions, members will be pressurized to take decisions without consulting with others or with proper discussion. So that can lead to groupthink. Self-censorship. So there is a lot of pressure within the group in terms of what to say, what not to say, in terms of what is allowed, what is not allowed, and there is strict hierarchy in the group. It can lead to minority voices being not heard in the group. And also when the group members feel there is very high cohesion, they feel we all are same, we all are very cohesive in the group. So if that kind of illusion of high levels of cohesiveness exists, people may not open their mouth because they feel if I give a different opinion, others in the group might feel I am an outsider. So why to challenge others? So these kind of conditions can lead to groupthink. So how to overcome groupthink in organizations? There are two levels of, or in fact many levels of interventions or practices which will reduce groupthink. The first practice is organizational remedies. There can be an external auditor, okay, to evaluate decisions. When the group take decisions, there can be an external member who can sit and observe. There can also be multiple groups examining the same issue. So instead of one group taking the decision, you give the problem to 2-3 groups and see how they take decisions. Because when there are different decisions made, then you will know there is some problem in one of those groups. We can also train members. So when groups are formed, you can train members for sensitizing them to issues like groupthink. So when members know that there is a possibility of groupthink, they may be aware and be open in group decision making. So they might they can openly criticize, or they can come up with their own ideas in the group. So you train people to be very open in the group and also sensitize them to groupthink. The role of the leader is also very important. The leader should encourage critical thinking. So many times how leader opens a problem, instead of saying I think this is right when decision making is made, when leaders open the statement like, okay, I have an idea, can we discuss? Instead of saying that, let's discuss with each other's idea and then evaluate. Okay, so instead of coming up with a solution, the leader should encourage critical thinking, which also involves creating an environment where everybody feels secure enough to share their opinions and ideas without being judged by others or without being considered as an outsider by others in the group. And also, like I said earlier, outsiders can evaluate the ideas. You can have an outsider just as an observer to see how decisions are made in the organization. There's another interesting idea called devil's advocate role, where you assign a particular member in the group and the role of the member is to question the ideas in the group, even if there is no logic. Devil's advocate is someone who represents the devil or the tabooed idea. So this person, his or her role, for the sake of asking questions, they should ask questions. They should challenge even if the idea seems to be the best idea. Okay, why to do that? Because the devil's advocate will represent people who are not open enough to voice out their opinions, or devil's advocate will feel I am not challenging it, but because my role is this, I am challenging it. So there is no sense of guilt or sense of inhibition to challenge the idea, because your role is that people have assigned you that role to ask questions. And also remain objective. The leader should remain objective. The leader should not become biased. So every time the leader should ask himself or herself whether he or she is getting biased about some members in the team or some ideas in the team or towards a certain kind of a process. So the leader should be unbiased in terms of processes in decision making, members or ideas. The leader should try to be more objective. Okay. In terms of members, members should evaluate all the ideas before taking decisions. So members should not like, okay, majority is thinking like this, I should also agree. They should listen and then they should evaluate each other's idea. And also they should share the ideas with outsiders, like external expert. You can share your ideas with people outside the team so that they will be able to view it objectively. And also in terms of process, we can have subgroups to develop alternatives. So the large group can create smaller groups so that each of those groups can approach the problem from a different perspective. Especially when the group size is large, groupthink might be more, because some people may think, okay, majority is making decision, why should I voice out my opinion. So instead of having large groups making decision, the group can have subgroups, and each of the groups can come up with their own perspective on the problem. And also compare other organization solutions, how other organizations are handling groupthink. And there's a very important and interesting idea which is called second chance meeting, which means once the decisions are made, even if the decisions are finalized, you should have a second chance meeting, which means decisions are made, but relook at the idea once again, relook at the solution once again, because sometimes conditions would have changed. When you made decisions, conditions are different. Now probably conditions are new, the context might have changed. So having a second look will help evaluate the problem and the solution objectively. And also when you do a second chance meeting, you don't have much pressure on you to finalize the decision, because in the first time when you make decision, there is a lot of pressure on you to come up with a solution as a team. But the second chance meeting, already you have made a decision, there is no pressure on you to decide something. The pressure or the role is, or the task at hand is to evaluate, just to relook at it. Okay, so that reduces the pressure on you to make decision, which gives you enough comfort to evaluate the decision in a very objective manner. Okay, so this is the end of the chapter. Next chapter we will look at organizational culture, and till then take care. We'll meet in the next lecture.